And judging with me are Aaron, Could I go through teams in the order in which they're speaking? Opening up.
Justin speaking first, your left. Brian speaking second, your left.
Opening opposition.
Tom first, A.
We'll take another reference.
Closing government.
Darion Hotan.
Thanks for the second field, thank you.
And closing opposition. Speaking first.
Brian speaking second, David.
Speak to the news for the next night for someone. That's great, thanks, yeah. Any questions? None. Thanks very much.
So before I get to our point of substantive on divorce, I'm just going to do a little bit of. We think when we got here and said that we regret like the overvaluation of love as a reason to get married, right? We're not saying that love should no longer be a reason to get married, right? We're simply saying that it should be put on equal footing with already existing pragmatic reasons like those discussed. It's simply equal across the board, equalization in terms of the decision-making process. All right, that said, one unique point of substantive in this debate brings to you from the premise, right? The first is that we significantly improve the status quo with regards to how divorce works and the amount of divorce we get, right? Two things. First is that we end up reducing divorce rates significantly on our side of the house. Right now, we think that love is not a rational or a forward-looking emotion, right? We think that it's often based on things like chemicals in your brain, like deciding you find attractive, or you might love someone because you think they're funny, etc., right? We don't think love is really built upon solid, rational decision-making capabilities, right? We think, yeah, go.
So I'm here as well, but the way I interpret emotion is a process. And to compare that probably some point in time, something that happens in the past. Do you agree? And if so, what is that comparison?
I don't necessarily agree with that characterization, right? I mean, if we want to get up here and say that, like, at some point in the past, like, we had, it's sure, fun. Well, like engaging that at best, right? I think you could probably draw a line, like, some point in the past, like, even if it was ancient human history, like, there was more pressure on someone to get married for pragmatic reasons because they were less certain about their future, etc., right? I don't think that's really important. Okay, so that said, for those same reasons, we think that you can still love someone who, like, abuses you or you have an abusive relationship with. Like, love is not a particularly rational emotion. It's not a particularly good way to base long-term life decisions. Right? So, no, that, right? So, what we end up looking for is that when you go into a marriage, you should be trying to look for warning signs of things that you might be concerned with in the future. Like, can I stomach waking up next to this person, like, 30 years from now, right? Like, does this person want to have children? Do I want to have children? Will they make a good husband or, like, make a good father, etc., right? We think in the status quo, when you're overly worried about love, these are things you're not actually thinking about, right? Because of the social narrative of how decision-making works. Right? Broadly, we think that humans decide on things by calculating the outcomes that they do, right? We weight those outcomes based on the things that we think will make us happy, right? Those weights are largely passed on to us by societal factors, right? If you are brought up in a society where, like, you're reading Cosmopolitan and saying, like, you just need to find that perfect husband who's gonna love you forever, right? Or, like, you're watching TV shows in which, like, the people get married are, like, the perfect star-crossed lovers, etc., your decision-making calculus is going to be focused entirely on that, and you're not going to be thinking about these pragmatic concerns, but you're also not going to think about thinking about these things, which becomes a problem, right? So, no, that's right. On our side of the house, what you end up getting is that you have people in the comparative looking instead towards more pragmatic factors and looking instead towards whether or not that marriage can last well into the future, right? We think having these more rational concerns will lead to people establishing marriages that can last longer and are less likely to come apart because all of a sudden you fall out of love with someone like 5 years down the line. right? We think on our side of the house, you see less divorce because of that, and because of what is a good thing, because that's better for children, right? We think it's more stable to have them grow up in like two-parent homes, hypothetically. We also think that you have people who are less likely to go through like the moral and emotional turmoil of having divorce because they're not going to have that divorce in the first place, right? Before I move on, I'll take over.
What's the actual point of saying a relationship where you've chosen someone who's never going to break up with you, so you never get divorced, but you don't actually really like them, you find them a little bit annoying, and you probably rather actually someone you really like.
Yeah, so that's not actually the comparative, right? We're not saying that like you should marry people you don't want, right? We're saying that just shouldn't be overly the focus of what you're talking about, right? We're saying that your decision-making calculation should be different, and that it also values these pragmatic things, right? You're not overly valuing love. This is literally the mechanism I use to start this week, right? Okay, second sentence, right? Okay. We think we make divorces easier and more efficient and less hurtful on our side of the house, right? When you have a marriage that's a relationship, but also more of a contract, we think that improves on our side of the house, right? When we de-emphasize love as a reason for marrying someone, right, we think that you end up normalizing the idea that marriage is a contract, and that divorce, which is ending that contract or getting rid of that contract, is a much more normal process in the status quo. Right, this becomes super important for a couple of reasons, right? Because you de-emphasize the importance of love, so that when people fall out of love, they're not hurt as much by it, right? 2 points. The first is, we don't think you end up with as much spite when a divorce actually happens, because we think that these people are going to be less concerned about like having fallen out of love with this person, and more concerned with like the pragmatic concerns of actually getting a divorce. Right. The second is we don't think we let spite build up as much on our side of the house when it comes to time to get a divorce. We think in the status quo, the way a lot of divorces happen, it's like you think you're madly in love with this person, but then these little things start to nagging you, and all of a sudden, like you decide you've had too much, and you can't do that anymore, right? By the time that pressure gets released, by the time you finally can see to yourself, oh yes, I've fallen out of love with this person, right? Like at that point, you really hate the other person, and that's incredibly problematic. Right? On our side of the house, where you're already thinking about these more pragmatic concerns, where we've de-emphasized the importance of love as much, you're less likely to all of a sudden like wake up one day and say, I've fallen out of love with this person because of all these little reasons that have built up. You're more likely to be concerned with those little reasons in the first place, right? So if at the point where you think you need to get a divorce, you're more likely to get that divorce earlier and not with that spike, right? Why is that important? A couple of impacts. Right? We think that means that there's less emotional anguish on our side of the house when a divorce actually happens because people hate each other less and they're not as concerned with the relationship breaking up. We also think, and this is important, that this is the best outcome for the children who would be or who are involved in this divorce, right? If you're a child in a divorce right now, oftentimes you have parents who vehemently hate each other fighting over you, right? Whispering in your ear, oh, like your daddy doesn't love you, or like he's this horrible person, et cetera, et cetera. Right? If you got this more like normalized divorce process, you're less likely to see parents doing that to your child, right? It's much more likely for parents just to step up and say, listen, divorce is a normal thing, it kind of sucks, but we'll get through it as a family or like together with you, right? Children come out much better, they go through less emotional turmoil, they're less likely to be emotionally scarred by this. We think this is a much better outcome. So proud of you.
I'd like to thank the Prime Minister for that speech and invite Leader of the Opposition to open the case.
When two people get married, we ask them to commit to holding that relationship for better or for worse. And that's a bond that we think is incredibly valuable and one that they devalue. Because when they say that love and marriages are just going to be based on the immediate financial concerns or your ability to be able to move up in society, those are things that can fade in and out of being very quickly, that form a flimsy basis of a relationship. But what we do is we give you a solid reason why this one individual in particular, rather than any old sugar daddy or any old person who can take you to nice events happening in the city, is able to provide you the best. On our side, we give you a unique reason reason as to why you're living with this individual for the 60 years of your life and why you've chosen to form that exclusive bond with them. 3 points in this speech. First, I'm going to look at how this allows people to better cope with hardship. Secondly, I'm going to look at what's most appropriate for raising kids. And thirdly, I'm going to look at how this creates a better long-term basis for relationships. So before I do that, I'd like to say one extraneous thing. We're very confused as to what opening governments actually believe they are saying. But regardless of whatever it is that they think they are saying, it's fairly clear that what the world that they want to live in is one where there are going to be more people making these decisions on the basis of money and these extraneous factors rather than love. We think that's clear and the debate can proceed on that basis. Maybe they can clarify at DPM. Now let's go into why we believe this allows people to cope with hardship in a better way. So when you're in a relationship where the basis of you entering into that is that you're able to get immediate financial returns or reap the benefits of household economies of scale by being able to divide your fixed costs amongst multiple people, then it's very clear as to why you're going to be willing to, it's unclear why you'd be willing to stay with that relationship when things get difficult. So if your basis is, I am immediately more happy as a result of this, what happens is that your basis for being in that relationship is dependent on them being able to continue to do so. So if they become difficult to support, if they suffer through mental illness, if they get a disease which is difficult and they face suffering and hardship, they're no longer the same person who is fun and joyous for you or is able to provide you with immediate benefits to yourself. If they lose their job in the city, it no longer means they have that income. At that point, the basis for you being in that relationship is incredibly flimsy. And that means that people don't work through their problems in the same way as if they're married for love. Because even though people can fade out of love in some sense in the way that a dopamine fix to their brain will reduce after a few years, what that's able to change into is a more enduring love, where they trust that individual and understand them like no one else could. And that's something that's far more easy to believe is important for you, where that is a uniquely chosen individual who you've made the decision to marry, on the basis that there's something unique about them that you love and that you're able to reach out to. And that's something that's able to endure. And that's why we say that you enter a relationship for better or for worse. It's that ability to have an internal story to yourself to justify why you're in that relationship. That doesn't stand when you base it on other factors. Secondly, I'm going to look at what's more appropriate for raising kids. We're going to be honest, raising kids is often a really terrible career move for many people. It means that many people have to postpone their careers or not be able to advance as far. But nevertheless, we think that the family unit is incredibly important, and it's great that we have parents who are willing to spend time and energy and money to raise their kids in the best way possible. That's how we ensure that each generation is able to go into society and stand on our shoulders to do even more and promote more good in the world. That's something that's why it's so important that we create a cohesive family unit. But if your reason for going into a marriage is I'm going to be able to advance my career or be able to swan around more high society events, then that's something that quickly fades out of view. Because objectively, a marriage and having a family is something that's incredibly bad for that. So if you enter into a marriage on the basis of immediate financial advancement, you're more likely to see that having those kids is less valuable and have more resentment about that very structure. What we do is we create a structure where people internally commit very clearly as to what they're getting into. And as a result, make better decisions about the life that they want to lead closer.
So lots of couples decide not to have kids because they're afraid it'll affect their marriage. Kind of willing to make sacrifices for each other, so on and so forth. What's the difference sort of in the two counterparts here?
Many people do have kids. We think the vast majority of people entering into marriages do intend to, and we believe that that's a sufficiently important thing that we want to protect that. We don't think this is particularly controversial. Just one small thing I want to clarify. It's actually on the first point, I should have said it there. And that's that people can still move out of love and decide that they want to have a divorce. So even if you have high bonds that commit you to a certain person, you're able to decide that you want to move out of that if that love is no longer there. The difference is that you try much harder to ensure that that relationship is going to work. But at the point you decide that it's unsalvageable and there's no way you can live with that individually anymore, we think you actually have more flexibility if you're married to love to do so. Because if you marry the bank balance might still be there, even if you are thoroughly unhappy and living a miserable life. If you marry the love and that love is no longer there, then you have the option of explaining why that's the case. And that might be something that's really hard and hurtful for someone to do, but we think it's valuable and is an honest thing to do, given it reflects how they truly stand, rather than having to rely on more flimsy basis or justifications. We want people to commit to very long-term exclusive relationships, but we give them the ability to move out of that if they decide that that no longer works, and we expect them to be honest at the point they decide that is the case. Now let's look at ways to provide a better long-term basis for a relationship. The difference when you marry for love is that you decide uniquely that that individual is the person for you. So you decide on the basis of something that only you can feel and no one else can experience. That's not the case of when you marry a bank balance, because people are able to weigh that up and see objectively where it stands. It doesn't stand when you marry someone because of their social status or because of their caste, because that's an objectively outside verifiable factor. What that means is that your decision is far more likely to be clouded by the views of others, so your family is likely to have far more sway when you accept a paradigm in which people accept love on the basis of money or the basis of status. What we do is we remove something that's unique to you, that only you can experience, because your father or your mother cannot say to you that you cannot love that individual. They can say that you should not love that individual because of these external constraints, but they can't change your very emotions. What they can do under their side is point to a range of external factors which are verifiable outside and use that as a persuasive argument. When we create a view that love should be the only key factor that is part of a marriage, we allow you the recourse to be able to decide uniquely and offer you more choice that's removed from societal pressure that's often tied into socio-economic class to allow people far more freedom to decide. We create more enduring relationships that allow people to strive towards raising kids and create a better relationship in a good way, one that's unaffected from external factors. I'm very proud to accomplish.
I'd like to thank the opposition for that speech and turn the Minister to continue the case for
We're fundamentally confused why opening opposition insists that long-term stable relationships are an inherently good thing that we should prioritize over anything else, when the fact is that precisely this view has not only failed to prevent divorces from occurring, but has actually led to more acrimonious divorces than they need to be the case, for more family breakdowns, and ultimately worse outcomes for both partners in a relationship, and crucially, their children. But before we go on to that, quick point of characterization here, right? We fundamentally, look, this motion is very simple. Love is, the notion of marrying for love is incredibly pervasive in society. There's several fronts, right? The media, popular culture, business, organized religion, whatever, right? The point is that that is currently placed on a social pedestal to the extent that the vast majority of people think that they can only legitimately get married for love, and that taking any other reasons into account is somehow illegitimate, and moreover, to the extent that they are perceived to have done so, their relationships are questioned by everyone from their friends to the family members, and in many cases, ultimately, even the government, right? We think that's an incredibly unhealthy state of affairs. We're not saying that love is going to be abolished under our marriage. That's clearly ridiculous. But all we're saying is that people should be free to consider this wide range of factors. Sometimes the person you love the most just isn't going to make a compatible partner. We just don't see why that is so difficult for some people in this room to understand. A couple of quick responses here, right? When Tom stands and tells us that it's very important that people marry for love in order to maintain long-term relationships, know that divorce is on the rise and shows relatively little signs of stopping across most developed societies. So clearly, whatever it's doing, it's not doing a very good job. But secondly, we fundamentally question this focus on long-term relationships, right? People a generation, 2 generations, 3 generations ago married for the eternity, for the duration of their lifetime. Why? Because social and geographical mobility was relatively low. Life expectancy were relatively short. We live in a different world now, fundamentally. People move around, people change careers, people live for far longer than the ancestors ever would have thought possible. The idea that someone, in the 20s or even in the 30s can find one person, and stick to that person for the rest of their life, strikes me as, at best, deeply delusional, and worse, a recipe for disaster. Right? The problem with elevating love about everything else is you make it incredibly difficult for people to come to that realization and peacefully and amicably walk away from it. It's a contract. It's a contract between 2 consenting parties, like any commercial contract. If people are unhappy with the outcome of the contract, they should be free to walk away. There's absolutely no reason why this particular process needs to be so acrimonious cars. Third reason, right? Just in case there's not a very nuanced analysis on why it's so important for children in particular that these things don't turn into the litigation and frankly speaking, deeply unpleasant feelings that they often become, right? We think it's particularly important that when people are engaging in this process, that they respect each other as equals and view each other as mature and responsible adults. The point is that love often blinds your ability to do this. Love forces you to take into account the fact that society as a whole is very, very reluctant to validate this sort of behavior when relationships are breaking down. We think that's incredibly harmful. You got no response from finally and very quickly, right? This whole idea that in times of hardship, people are just going to walk away, right? At the end of the day, that's a matter for each individual couple, but we can see lots of circumstances where that might actually be a reasonable thing to do. If you are in a situation where, as much as you're in a relationship and your partner is in deep difficulties for whatever reason, and that your partner's difficulty is causing immense hardship to yourself and potentially to your children, to your friends, and to your family members, we think it's really perfectly ethical for people to walk away. We think even be the responsible course of behavior to adopt in some instances. The idea that people should just stay in these relationships because they're bound together as consequences is exactly the sort of frankly coercive behavior that we in proposition are proud to object to. No, thank you. What I'm going to bring in substantive now is a simple point about decision-making processes and why there are lots of very legitimate reasons for getting married other than love, right? Something that's clearly crucial in this debate. The point at which the love becomes problematic is that when people view coercive pressure into turning down valuable life opportunities, not linked to marriage, because of societal this pressure, is one that we quite frankly speaking regard as progressive and oppressive. It shouldn't be society's place to prejudge why people get married. Marriage, we agree with the opposition here. Marriage is an incredibly important commitment to make. We think that people's decisions when entering and making this commitment shouldn't be judged by society at large. Society shouldn't be able to inquire into the minds of people and say that some reasons are more legitimate than others, which is exactly what the status quo is all about. We can see in practical terms, right? Let's just focus on simple common sense examples. Like marrying for money or status, obviously in the inverse life, right? Look, let's be honest, it is a mechanism for social mobility in lots of contexts. Even in developed society, because there's a way for people to access life opportunities that they couldn't have access. It is also a way potentially for lifting families out of poverty. It could be a way of ensuring that their children, if they do have children, end up having far better life chances than they ever could have themselves. We don't see anything wrong with that. We think that's probably a good thing that on the whole government should be promoting. The problem is that I think government is the opposition to some extent, like society at large, conflates the idea of marriage for pragmatic reasons with forced marriage, right? The two things are entirely separate. People, believe it or not, are capable of making rational, reasonable decisions of their own free will as to weighing up different factors before entering into marriage and making that decision. There need not be any coercion. Needless to say, government opposes forced marriage, which is a diffusion thing. We also think that in many cases, forcing people to get married for love is in itself a deeply coercive behavior. But moreover, right, if we just look at the pragmatic reasons that people can get married for, it's not only in terms of increasing life chances, ultimately about self-fulfillment, giving people the opportunity to do things that they otherwise wouldn't have had the chance to do. One simple example, right, is like the forced marriage that Theresa May kept talking about when she was Home Secretary, which is essentially the notion of people in developed countries bringing people from developing countries into their own countries under the guise of being in a spousal relationship, right? We see nothing wrong with that. We think that fundamentally this just opens up life chances for people as long as there's no human trafficking, as long as there's no coercion or abuse involved. We're happy with it. The only reason why governments are able to get away with delegitimizing this form of behavior and creating this sort of big, scary monument, which they can then rail against, look at the reasons in America chain migration, for instance, is precisely because of this outdated sort of social attitude. Ultimately, what our case comes down to is this: the idea that you can marry someone, live with them for the rest of their life, might potentially have worked a century ago. It doesn't work in an age where people have far more opportunities and live far longer lives than they ever did before, and it's time for society to wake up to that.
I'd like to open up to comments on that speech and project resolution to case for
Okay, so it became increasingly clear that the sort of conception they have of the world that they want is one where people slip in and out of relationships, like Wall Street traders entering and leaving positions based on the mutual advantage that they can get or the singular individual advantage they can get from that. But the problem that leads to is you start to have people looking at their wives when they have cancer or their husbands and saying, well, you used to be a high earner, you were the bad balance reason I got in this relationship, you're now unable to work. What keeps you in a relationship? On our side of the house, the love you have from that person. On their side of the house, nothing, because you can walk away with no acrimony. There's no reason for you to stay, because the entire idea of the benefits they want to bring to you about non-acrimonious divorces is that both people can, at the end of the day, turn their shoulders and say, well, we'll just move on, we're not getting any hard feelings about it. The problem is with this, it denies something that's so important in human experience that we are willing to do. So for come to discussion, firstly, what is this debate about? Secondly, I want to talk about kids and divorce and long-term relationships. Then I'll talk about why love is particularly important. And finally, how love undermines power structures and maybe why it's a bad idea to have lots of people moving to certain countries where they're reliant on staying with their partner in order to have a visa to stay in. So in terms of what this debate is about, probably not the last time that we're going to accuse each other of being confused, but we were genuinely very confused as to what this debate is about. We thought the comparative would be that a world where you make decisions with love is a primary factor, but also in the current world, people make decisions like whether or not your partner wants to have a kid, a factor in relationships. So lots of relationships break up because one partner says, I'm not ready to have kids. The other partner says, I am, I want to have kids. And despite the fact that the two of them love each other, they break up and move on and try and find something else. So it's not the case that right now, the only thing that people ever think about is love. It is the case that it's an overriding consideration that people think that's more valid than marrying for money or status or power. On the other hand, the comparative seems to be that you shouldn't marry for love. Because why is it the case that you have an acrimonious divorce? It's not because society tells you love is important. It's because you've been in love with that person. You've felt the experience. You've felt the highs and the lows that have come with that. And now they have hurt you in such a way that it's caused you to then lash out things during that process. The only way to avoid that is not just to make love one of many factors you randomly think about, but to make love not even a foundation of that relationship, so to actively find people that you don't hate but you don't love, because otherwise, if you're finding people who both you love and you can wake up in 30 years, you still have all the harm of that acrimonious divorce. The only way to make the case work is to actually run the case they should have ran, which is that people should go for relationships based not around love and actually choose not to pursue love, but to base it on other things like stability, material status, and wealth. So in terms of kids and divorce, so they said the main benefit is that you lead to firstly relationships which are more easily exited, so people can turn a cold shoulder and say, that was a fun 15 years, but now let's move on, I'm going to go find someone else and you can go find a different banker or a different person from the same ethnic group, because that's a decision based on what we want to do. So at that point, firstly, it's not necessarily clear to me that it's better for the children, for the entirety of that relationship. Parents are probably not being in love, so they've not developed, showing to themselves the warmth and depth of emotional experience that they would have had. I'd rather have parents who loved and then broke up than parents who were mutual business partners, and at the end of 10 years decided, well, let's move on to something else now, and we'll find another partnership. So we think necessarily, this is your conception of what relationships should be. That's not necessarily good for kids. But secondly, if it's true there's going to be such a low level of acrimony, then you also take love entirely out of the equation, which takes us to some other points about why love is particularly important for keeping relationships together, which is what Thomas told you. Because at the point that your partner gets cancer and can no longer provide the earning potential that you married them for, either on their side you go, well, a cool, rational person in this scenario could leave the partner. And on our side, the person says, well, I love this person, they're at the seat of my being, I'm going to support them, I'm going to change, I'm going to push through and get through this, and keep people together rather than allowing them to coolly exit and fall apart. That generally is more beneficial for children in those kind of scenarios. But thirdly, that means you don't get trapped in those relationships, at least in other kinds of scenarios. So I'll talk about this more in the end of the speech, about why the power structures that they set up can be uniquely bad for one person in that relationship, often woman. And why that's a reason why love, at least, is something important. But on to love now, so the third point. So given that we know that in order to achieve the main benefits, at least the second thing we wanted to talk about, non-acrimonious exits, you probably couldn't have been in love with the person at the start. Otherwise, the love would make you hate them, even absent any of the sort of social noise. So at this point, you're missing out on one of the most beautiful, core, and incredible and meaningful human experiences in life. We know how it plays out. We know it's just something going on in our brains chemically. Maybe we know that on an individual scientific level, but our knees don't know that, and they quake when we see the person that we love. Our mind doesn't know that, we don't feel that way. So a life without love is a life that's meaningfully less rich and less important, even if that life involves comparatively more pain. Even if that life involves comparatively more suffering than someone who gets into a business relationship, like 4 or 5 times across their lifetime with different partners in order to further the mutual advantage at that point in time, we think those lives are meaningfully poorer, and love is one thing that, regardless of what social pressure says, makes people's lives better, and it's a good thing that people are encouraged to think that is more important than marrying someone to their bank balance. But secondly, it's something that you can't turn off. You can't just go, well, I'm now going to decide to be pragmatic, therefore I will never access these feelings of love. You're probably going to fall in love with someone that you meet in general life, but you can't access that if you're in a marriage with somebody else, because the whole point of marriage is that it is exclusive in many of the important ways that are relevant for love, right? So you can't just go and have another entire relationship, you get all of your love, but also have your marriage with the family, because the structures around that original marriage exclude much of that. Finally, love undermines power structures. So at the point where you're marrying for some kind of advantage, often one partner is disadvantaged within that. They're marrying into a higher status family. They're marrying into a more wealthy person. Or, as they ridiculously suggested, they are marrying someone maybe from the UK so they get a passport to come to the UK. All of these scenarios means it's much harder for you to leave that relationship. Because if you say, well, like, it's much more likely that the other partner is able to emotionally abuse you or able to disregard you or treat you as an object generally. And it's much harder for you to leave that, so you're much more likely to end up unhappy. So people will make decisions in their world which overall make their lives over. So not only are they loveless and exclude themselves from that experience, they also place themselves structurally at a point where they're undermined, and a point where generally class-wise they will be undermined as well. The final point on children, just to address the PY that we heard, which seems to suggest that if we get rid of love, we can arrest and decline birth rates as well. People choose not to have kids because they're in love. A lot of people choose to have kids because they are in love and they want their partner to be the person they have children with. It's a bit bizarre otherwise to form a business relationship with someone based on mutual advantage around sort of income and then go, let's definitely have kids specifically together. I don't understand motivation like that. I look forward to the extensions.
I'd like to thank the opposition for that speech and invite government member to open the case for
The assumption in the opening opposition case is that love lasts. What we tell you is that when the chemical rush wears off, when you realize that your idealized, romanticized image of the person you live with doesn't square with reality, this leads to bitterness, acrimony, regret, and pain. And that's what we stand against in closing the government. 3 points of extension. Firstly, on the freedom to be with people. Secondly, on stability in marriage. Thirdly, on the freedom to be happy. Before that, 2 direct points of response to opening. Firstly, they ask us, isn't it good for us to be set up in which you stay with your partner for better or for worse? What if your wife gets cancer? 2 responses. Number 1, the assumption is, if your marriage is based on romantic love, then you will stay with them for better or for worse. And I think that's false, right? I think in the case of a person whose wife has been ravaged whose wife's body and personality has been ravaged by cancer and disease, if you believe that you love a person and a person has been changed by the disease they experience, you are less likely to stay with them on balance if that's the reason you entered the relationship to begin with. But secondly, even if it's true that you're less likely to stay with that person because they've been changed by, on our side, we think that it's a good thing in some cases for us to not have this narrative of for better or worse, because the narrative that I need to stay committed to this one person, regardless of what happens, regardless of what transformations they go through, leads to people being damaged themselves by the condition, right? It's 2 lives being destroyed by that cancer. When a person has devoted their entire life caring for a person, under almost superhuman circumstances, right? Superhuman exertions of time, of energy, of resources, that ends up having one disease destroying 2 lives. I think that's worse on balance. Second argument, they say this is good for children. Okay, so first observation, I think people are so likely to have children outside the house. Notably, sometimes people want children. The comparativist on our side will say, right, pragmatically, who am I most likely to have a good long-term relationship with and stably raise children in? So on our side of the house,
that anyway. But also, like, I'm just not clear why the cohesion of the family unit is necessary for children to be raised well. I think individuals can raise children very well, or with the help of people working in the care industry, for example. We'll talk more about why cohesion is necessary for children later on. So, okay, let's talk about the freedom to live people. I want to make 3 points under this. Number 1, I think when you marry for romantic love, you spend your life searching for magic moments rather than for people who will actually make you happy. The premise here is that romance requires a specialness and a singularity to it, right? You can't like believe that you could possibly love everyone in the world, because then the specialness that opening up pops up, that for better or worse is something that becomes eroded. This means when you search for someone to spend your life, just spend your time with, right? Even if it's like before marriage or dating people, you end up not looking for people who will genuinely make you happy. You end up overlooking the people with whom you actually spend the most time, with whom your actual conversations make your life richer, with whom who actually share your political views, who actually are people who make your life brighter in every way, because you think there's no spark, there's something special about these people, right? In some ways, ironically, the very people who are most likely to make you happy are overlooked because they feel mundane, because they're parts of the ordinary extra of your life, and you realize later on in marriage you couldn't do it up. Before that, you just don't have. Okay, so maybe the response is, well, maybe it's a spark matters, right? That's what is valuable. Firstly, that spark fades over time, right? Because our idealized image of what a person is never lives up to reality. They are always gritty, they are always different in real life, right? But thank you. So those things shatter that image that we have, lead to a vast disappointment that follows afterwards. Except you've now spent a great amount of time you've spent with people who will make you happier, and you've not been looking for something too special. Second point on this, let's talk about extramarital affairs. So the premise here is that these things happen, right? And this is, we think, the ideal middle ground between monogamy and divorce. And sometimes it's a very good thing to happen. Firstly, because we think, like, if your partner isn't fulfilling you in some way, whether it's sexual or otherwise, right? It's a good thing for you to be able to explore your life with other people. Firstly, when you marry for romantic love, it becomes much harder for you to do this because it feels like a violation of something that's sacrosanct, right? Because you betrayed something that's more than just a formal arrangement within which two people spend a lot of time in the same house together. So it diminishes your ability to associate with people even during the marriage. Secondly, let's talk about friendships here, right? Because one of the effects of romance is to elevate that relationship to the exclusion of your other relationships as well. When your partner says, why are you spending so much time with your friends, right? Well, why are you spending your time with the person whom you love? So that broadly diminishes your ability to access the happiness that other friends who you explain to you give you a more stable sort of background level of happiness could give you otherwise. Finally, it's about finding partners after divorce as well. So the debate doesn't stop when divorce occurs, right? One of the biggest problems with people who undergo divorce is how they find another relationship in the future because they feel like moving on to quickly will be some kind of betrayal or something special or someone special in their life. That diminishes their ability to be happy and they can't find another person because they viewed it as something that was sacred rather than something that was merely for responsibility in marriage. Okay. In long-term relationships, communication is absolutely everything, right? For whatever reason you marry, whatever life you lead, you need to be able to talk openly about things, to talk through problems, to diffuse frustration before they build up into something worse in the long term. Even if you start completely different people, right? In our pragmatically arranged marriages, open communication means you learn to get along. We establish common rituals of communication. Marriage from romantic love produces less frank, open relationships than marriage from pragmatism. Firstly, because you're always worried about bursting the bubble, right? So when you're going through hard financial times, you say to yourself, well, but we're in love, so it will all work out, right? That belief that there is something that comes from romantic love, some kind of dessert that makes your problems work out in the long term. You don't speak frankly about how, like, I genuinely just can't spend this much time in the house, so I need to move on to something else, because any sentence beginning with the words, I love you, but sends red flags to your partner. When it's a formalized arrangement that's more pragmatic, it's easier for you to talk openly about these issues, and you get used to doing this over the long term with the person who you live with. Finally, let's talk about the freedom to be happy before that.
Moving away from the debatory analysis into the real world, if people require a very particular spark in order to form a marriage, why do so many people who are already free start dating?
Our point is we prefer a world where they didn't require that spark. We think because people frequently think they need that spark, otherwise marriage is real, that undermines your ability to genuinely find partners who will make you happy rather than beyond the singular moment in which you feel a chemical rush. Okay, it's really happy. So a lot of the opening up cases about the value of romance. And I think this is true. I think there is a value to the sort of enchantment when it comes to love. But I think that enchantment doesn't have to be either localized with people, including we find it in activities rather than individuals who are vulnerable. But it also doesn't have to be codified in marriage, right? Because that's what we regret outside the house. The idea that if you love someone, then that's the correct basis on which you form a long-term engagement, which you lock yourself into. Because recognize marriage imposes high exit costs on you as a person. There are strong stigmas associated with you leaving a marriage, and strong generational prohibitions against you finding someone else if that doesn't work out for you. So generally speaking, we think that experience of romance and enchantment is better found through your personal pursuits rather than the exclusive sexual person who's never going to meet your ideal conceptions of what your romantic partner ought to be. At the end of the day, members of the House, we think that romantic love is not an enchantment, it is a bewitching. It is a poor reason for you to spend your entire life in another house.
Okay, thank you, member, for that speech. And right, the opposition member to open the case for
Oh, sorry. Yeah. There are a lot of people who probably didn't find love, otherwise they would be watching the live stream. As much as I had to say it, I think this debate confirms many stereotypes about debaters, specifically about male debaters. I don't think this is a debate about the best possible division of structural household costs, or contract theory, or rational choice theory. I think this is a debate about heaven and love. I also think this is a debate about women, because it's bizarre to suggest that the burden of dependency and the burden of pragmatism fell to men and women equally in the past of history. Currently, we think they are most effective, and I think it's important. The setup for speech is simple. One, quite some rebuttals, specifically about divorce and to range of extraneous things to CD. Then I want to talk about love, specifically taking the point Weber and opening opposition, and explain why the unconditionality you get out of a relationship is far more important than just a deal relationship, but also means you're far more willing to be able to take risks in other parts of life and are far happier together. Secondly, I want to talk about women, why the burden unfairly fell to them, and why I think the situation got much better after this. So in terms of rebuttal, one, on divorce. Both OT and CD tell us, although in different words, that now you get a more rational perception of how you're going to choose your partner. You're going to someone who finds you happy, or someone you're going to make the rest of your year. The whole point is that love still exists on the both sides of the house. The crucial thing about love isn't you're like, yeah, you're pretty much a dick, but I love you. It completely changes how you perceive different kinds of people. In a sense that the moment you're loving someone, you're persuaded you want to wake up next to the person for the next 30 years. Or you're convinced that the person is actually making you happy, they'll keep making you happy. The whole point about love is that you perceive them far more positively. That means that the rational choice they claim is going to happen is simply impossible because your love means rationality is fundamentally skewed. That means on the both sides of the house, you don't have rational choice. The comparative, however, is that your expectations about the relation differ. You can be like, I love this person, you probably have some negative aspect where you think about it in a very specific way, but ultimately this is about love and about a loving relation. On that side, I'm going to love this person because I'm persuaded you will make me happy for the rest of my life. If that then doesn't happen, or you don't get the money, or the financial stability, or the status, or whatever you want to get out of that relationship, you're massively disappointed where you didn't get what you expected. Whereas on our side of the house, you're by definition getting what you expected, which is love, given the fact that the person loves you in the first place. That's a crucial difference. Now that that's less disappointing means you get far more smoother divorces, but also that's easier to work on a relationship. But secondly, on the way the person is actually going to play out. Look, there's sort of our assumption is at the moment you just married, but you did it sort of rationally, and it's always perfectly fine at the moment 1 to 2 months before you have marriage. I think that's going to be hard. I think in many cases it will not be interpreted as dissolving contract, but rather as a breach of contract, as entirely as LSE. At the moment you are happy with the marriage and you feel it's an important level of part of your life, and the other person want to get out of that, you're still very disappointed, you're still likely to be angry with them, and all those kind of sentiments, as irrational as it may seem, are still going to persist. I think that's incredibly, that means on the both sides of the house you get strong. There is one factor, however, it's perfectly possible to say, it's not you, it's me, it's a shame because I think you're a great person, I don't love you anymore. That's a horrific thing to hear, but ultimately it's blaming the enemy of the way, it's simply that can happen. By definition, on that side of the house, you are to blame. You fundamentally did something wrong. You didn't live up to the financial expectations, you didn't live up to social expectations. That's incredibly problematic. I think that's for most of the rebuttal primary interest. Let's talk about love. So, rightfully points out that love is unique about you. Yeah, the love is unique about you, and uniquely love the person. They impact that in relationships, but ultimately know that relationships are just a part of life, and that fulfillment can get out of many other factors, such as probably your career, your friendships, and other kinds of crucial things. What's the crucial thing about love? Love creates a certain kind of conditionality. At the moment, I'm addicted to my friends more than a couple of times, means I'm no longer fun to hang out with, and my friends are no longer going to hang out to see. That's very simple because friendship is simply there. Whereas at the moment you're addicted to the person you love, it doesn't immediately change the level of love. Love is simply an irrational part, that's a great thing about it, meaning you get a certain kind of conditionality. No matter how you fuck up, no matter what you do, there will be love, and that's an incredibly important thing. Why is it important? I think love is going to be significantly less on that side of the house. house. At the moment you're in love with another person, but you're still in a marriage, that marriage will always be linked to love. Whatever point in history, we always saw that marriage very linked to love in some way. That means that then loving another person was considered cheating and having frowned upon. So at the moment you did fall in love, you couldn't have an affair, you couldn't have a marriage with them, but you were directly forced to suppress it and could no longer have it in any meaningful way, you could no longer exercise the love. Why is it problematic? For these two reasons. One, it created massive stress in the about an expectation. Notice that the divorce rate skyrocketed during the 19th versus financial crisis because many people were promised prosperity, simply didn't get a prosperity. This is very scoring for going to work, simply saying, at the moment I get fired, I will probably leave, my spouse will probably leave me, for the very simple reason they're sending in there for the money. You don't have the feeling on the other side of the house, and marriage is such again employed, there will still be someone to love you. But secondly, the kind of choices you're going to make. You can do this in a very economical way, like for example, starting your own company, you're going into academia, but also in another way. Adapting a certain kind of body personality, being open about mental health. All those kinds of structural fundamental life choices are significantly easier at the moment you know that the most important person is still there for you, will still love you, and isn't just there for a social status for the kind of image. Why is that important? Well, it simply makes people happy, and I know this is a mission question, but it's very important that people are happy and feel everything in love. But secondly, you know that your marriage relatively early. I mean, the average is about 25. The idea that when you're 25, your identity is shaped and over everything different. You are the body kind of person, you're the social status kind of person. It's bizarre, you should not be able to live it. On the other side of the house, you get the possibility to continuously reinvent yourself, look for your kind of preference, go into academia when you're 40, start your own company when you're 45, change your life at the moment you're 50. You have these options at the moment people directly love you. I'm really sorry. Secondly, I want to talk about women, not directly. It's bizarre to claim that the duty about dependency fell to men and women equally. To give you a very example, when my grandma went to university, the moment she would like start dating and find a husband, because that's the reason she was sent to university, she would be forced to drop out, given back and then for the purpose of going to uni was fulfilled. There are two reasons for this. One knows that all the kinds of things you want to marry about that are listed in the English life, like money, like social status, through the patriarchy, were directly with men to begin with. That means that the way for a woman to access them was directly being there. Firstly, this created to a norm in which that was the way, and women should access herself, and the women should be made as good as a wife as possible, as good as potential spouse as possible. That's problematic because it means to over-focus on looks rather than intellectual capacity, for example, but it also means that you have to fit in the idea of what an ideal life was, interested and not too interested. By definition, not too assertive, because that might be super annoying. So you've got a very patriarchal idea, precisely constructed by this, because that's the fundamental way to access it. It also means that there's an excuse not to provide other things. It was perfectly legitimate not to allow them to be financially independent, given the fact they were supposed to find a husband anyway, and that is the thing we do there. Lastly, I would just to point out that this applies to families broader. A whole family sometimes lives with thousands. A whole family saw their one daughter as an opportunity to rise one social class. It means both the pressure being put into her, making her ideas, all this kind of dependency has led to horrific things you're proud to boast.
I'd like to thank people just remembering why we don't work in that case to go on match.
This speech is still unconventional, but hey, it's a good time to try things. The extensional CG is really based on. So I'm going to tell you what they are, but integrate rebuttals closing up in that, because I think that's where the try to tussle this. I'm going to show you why that wins the debate, also by responding to the opposition as well as those themes. What are those two things? The first of those things, which went completely unresponded, is that we separate romance and the spark you are looking for from the institution of marriage. Because we like these two things have been tied together, which creates a lot of tension people feel when deciding whether or not to be a marriage or a committed relationship. The comparison we gave you, and this is what Darion told you, is on our side of the house, you can have it all because you are now free from the pressure state by leaving your marriage or by having a sexual relationship outside marriage, it no longer cheapens the origin and the root of the marriage. On that side of the house, it would. Because if you do have a sexual relationship with someone else, then it seems to undermine the fact that I uniquely love this person, I have strong romantic feelings. On our side of the house, there's no reason to think that that attachment would happen. What does this world look like? I want to make this very clear. Brian needs to respond to this. It is a world in which someone can say, this person is the best person to raise a child. I know them, I trust them, we share a similar parenting outlook, we share a similar vision of who they're going to be, and as a result, we will embark on this life project together. But I have a fucking good time having sex every other Tuesday with other people out there. And the thing is, the stigma against that goes away on outside of the house when you no longer valorize the fact that those two relationships, and not literal relationships, but those two constructs have to be tied together. That's a massive positive thing outside creates, they never responded to. But the second thing Darion tells you is that love fucks with your rationality. Now, Roel is right to say this still exists, and like there's several problems with this. Let's go through what he told us. They say in closing opposition that love creates an expectation of unconditionality. Like, it's kind of similar to what opening up said, and I never heard of an ESL extension before, probably the same words. But I think that the problem with this, maybe Brian will make it sound better. The problem with this, by the way, is that that expectation of unconditionality is precisely what undermines communication. It's as Darion says, how can you signal unconditionality when you say, I love you, but we need to talk about our finances? There's often this belief that love can conquer anything, and that if it doesn't, then that isn't true love. There's an inability to communicate at the point where that expectation of eternal, like, so lastingness and unconditionality occurs. Theo tells us a few more things. The first thing that I can say is this affects how you will feel about your relationship if you are fired. I mean, like, I just think this is a trivial example, right? Because, like, sure, maybe you fired as a CEO of Goldman, chances are you're going to find a similar job in a few weeks, like in a similar socioeconomic strata, and it's unlikely that this person's going to leave you knowing that, like, the next average person should get is in the next MDG. But I mean, more crucially, and this is where I think we do in the debate, it is about decisions like quitting that job to do something else, which is something you might not have discussed with your partner, but we think is a good thing if your partner can say, hey, if you change your life entirely in your midlife crisis, you become a totally different person. And I think that we need to move on to this relationship, and we should stop pretending that, you know, some emotional bonds or unconditionality binds us from making that decision. So on that side of the house, we like to help people make that decision in a significantly better way. The last thing to say here is that they talk about losing options. No, like the ability to move to academia. Again, Darion's positive material here takes the debate. Because of course, on our side of the house, that decision to become an academic is no longer clouded by the fact that you're afraid to raise it because saying things like, oh, I love you, honey, but I've had this thought, right? You can just openly have a thought which says, I want to be an academic, I'm going to give up your high-paying job. Do you still get something out of this relationship? If not, let's move on. And that's fine, because in the broader society as a whole, me becoming an academic will allow me to find someone else who shares a similar vision and will therefore create that marriage, that relationship, that formalized relationship that allows us to achieve that. Last of all, on women, like, we just didn't really understand this argument of women. So we regret patriarchy too, to the extent that once we regret that bit, a lot of these harms go away. I think that sort of takes it out. But I think the rest of our positive material about being able to have a family, have a career, and have sexual fulfillment and romantic spark are things that are good for women as well, to the extent that we generate a lot more of that we win this way. So, quick summary of what the upshot of this is. The upshot of this is we've given you a clear vision of what the world would look like and the path to happiness. The path to romantic sparks would happen outside of formalized, codified relationships. The path to life goals, that would require commitments and sacrifices in communication, would happen in marriages which are explicitly about sacrifices in marriages, sacrifices in communication, and that sort of thing. Which is why we think that sort of divorce, so to speak, is going to be better for the pursuit of happiness than it. How does this deal with the debate as a whole? You want to deal with three big ideas that come up from opening opposition. The first thing is they say there is now an internal story to justify being together in the long run. This leads to enduring understanding. The remark I want to add here to what Darion tells you is, I think there's a difference, I'll take it in just a second, between attempting to marry for love and finding love with that person, right? Because everything Darion tells you is true, that when you are in that process of love, you're not necessarily certain about it. There's sort of a feeling that is opening up says is internal and unverifiable. It's actually quite likely that the person you think you love isn't that person you're willing to stick with when they do get cancer. Go ahead.
There's quite a big difference between the human experience of falling head over heels for someone in love and trying to get that same feeling by having sex with someone else once every Tuesday for a couple of years. Why is it the case that your proposed kind of alternative is something that in any way matches that piece of human experience we think people meaningfully lack in your work?
Fine, I mean, if you fall head over heels for them and to see them more than once every Tuesday, you see them every day. Like, the whole point is, those are separate relationships, separate institutions, separate constructs, separate paths of achieving the things which make you happy in life, and that is better for everyone involved. So the response here, by the way, is not the reason. One reason why love changes over time is because marriage right now is often seen as a precursor and a barrier before many things which fundamentally change your interactions. So for example, in many societies, marriage is seen as something you must have before you cohabit. It's seen as something you must have before you meaningfully join the extended family in things like celebrations. But it's very often these additional experiences which help you see a different side of the person, which just means, logically speaking, you don't have full information before marriage. That's why love does always change, but in many cases it does meaningfully change the dynamic that you have after that. What is the upshot of all of this? The upshot of all of this is that there's absolutely no guarantee that when that cancer strikes, you will actually stick with that person. The last thing to do with here is with kids. They say kids get raised better because relationships stick together. I mean, to the extent that we talk about the sort of parenting styles you have, like there's our positive vision, but three more responses to that. The first is on the outside of the house, as we suggested, you get parents with a similar worldview about kids who commit similarly to how they want their kids to be raised and the importance of those kids in their lives. On that side of the house, by the way, a world in which love is seen as this overriding factor that can overcome all, which blocks communication, is a world in which one person, usually the woman, by the way, is expected to give in. That is to say, if there's an initial disagreement, it often goes forward. But we love each other. We are meant for each other. So one of us must be wrong about these desires, and one of us has to give in. It's in these situations that disadvantaged individuals and groups end up having to make compromises. It means there is no about that future, and it means that when things eventually do go south, it is a future that hurts the kids because it's not a future that should have been created in the first place. We make the world better, trust me.
I'd like to go quick for that speech and invite opposition witness to make a
Panel, I've talked about the idea of greater stability and endurance relationships, but I think the key premise underlying the case is that greater stability and endurance leads to greater happiness and fulfillment and utility. This is where Roel uniquely comes in with a general mechanistic analysis, where I will not only get more utility over, but also the explanation of why people are more likely to fix relationships as opposed to merely walk away, i.e. the key premise that makes O's case viable in this comparison. Three things. First of all, fixing relationships and why unconditionality is the way forward. Second of all, in terms of utility. Third of all, societal impacts. The first one is to do with text random extension point principle. But you basically said you now create the opportunity to distinguish sex from other things like romance and affection. Three responses. One, I think you're mistaking this notion as regret the valourization of marriage, because all of the shaming of things like extramarital things and sex they talk about would still exist on both sides because there's a general valorization of marriage and need to be loyal and commit to your partner. It's nothing to do with whether or not you marry for love or marry for other reasons. Second of all, if anything, the valorization allows a better distinction because I can say I genuinely love this person and I'm married to them for the love we have, but I'm fucking someone else because of sex or other reasons, and that allows for a clearer conceptual distinction. Third of all, we just think that in many cases it is possible for me to say, I believe I can have sex, I can have affection for other people without love, and the pivotualization or putting love on a pedestal is so important. That is why you need to be, if you want to run that as an extension, maybe we run that for our science. Now let's talk about fixing relationships, because I think O generally says that you won't walk out of relationships, you never have more stable ones. But I think the missing thing that I navigated is what happens when you stay in relationships. Because I think OG and TG were quite valid in saying, yeah, things don't just get better. Right? This is where Roel's analysis uniquely comes in, because it's about how we read and relate and imagine things that happen in our relationships that uniquely change when I marry for love as opposed to other reasons. One, you think about the relationship and your member of it as a component of a collective, as opposed to merely as an individual, right? Because on your side, you always fall back on how does this affect my individual assets, my utility, and my own self. Whereas on our side, you care about the love itself because you see it intrinsically valuable. You see love actually as something, as a relationship, as bilateral, and unique and separate from both you and your partner. You see it as an intrinsic good. But second of all, it's also about the urgency, right? Because when you're weighing up things like, do you care more about individual self-interest or the collective maintenance and integrity of that relationship? On our side, seeing that relationship as intrinsically valuable because of love makes you care about a relationship over you caring about how good the deal is out. What are the implications of this? This affects and actually is the only reason why people often win to come forward with problems and talk about things to preempt and avoid divorce. First of all, you're more likely to try and fix a relationship if you think fixing it is intrinsically good, and even making an effort to do so is desirable. OG's pushes, but in many cases you could walk away. A, we're not clear how large that subset is, but B, we think there's a large subset. We're talking about things can fix it. A, you highlight problems that are resolved and complaints within things that can be chiseled out easily by saying either apologies, literally saying I'm sorry, or then changing very basic things like how you see things. But second of all, even if negotiations don't necessarily work out. It's about how you read your own experience that constitutes your utility, right? Do you see on our side that this is perhaps a mistake, but not necessarily something that's personal and damaging your own interest, versus on their side, there's active breach of contract, is someone that undermines you and as a personal attack against you. So maybe on our side you see as a regretful thing that relationship doesn't last. On your side you see as far more vehemently driving towards you. Furthermore, in terms of forthcomingness, dealing with CG's extension, you're far more likely to do so and talk about problems you might have that you don't conceal, because this doesn't, on our side, because this doesn't detract away from the value of that relationship, which is not pinned upon your objective conviction that you have an economic trouble or disease in one. You're therefore more likely to get more information overall, so therefore beat you on that measure. But second of all, utility. Although it shows you getting stable relationships. When clear why stable relationships like other debated friends or friends in general can't also fulfill stability, right? So there has to be utility or qualitative difference that's so unique about love. I think there's several things that are so important. I want to deal with CG's play like this wears off, right? Because that's the strongest attack. I think this is symmetric on both sides. One, there's a decreasing marginal utility in terms of money, status, and whatnot, because you've also gradually become more accustomed to it. Like you're married to a sugar daddy, you're married to someone who's wealthy, you're married to someone with stable status. You lose that extra marginal value that you gain, and you only get on our side because love is all. Love is not change, and love surprises. That is the first asymmetry. The second asymmetry is confrontivity. You're far more likely to think, I'm going to marry that old daddy over there with more cash. I'm going to marry this person with a higher status, because it's far easier to feel comparable or similar candidates who you could have married otherwise. Then, true love, which is so unique and simple that you wouldn't just walk in the street and be like, that guy's wealthy, I could have married him stuff. It's the comparativity there that makes it more likely on your side where it's all. Thirdly, it's the idea of the relation as intrinsically valuable, right? The unconditionality here matters because what Roel said through, you see that relation as specific, as unique, as impossible to recombine or replicate elsewhere. On your side, I can literally marry someone else who's just as wealthy or higher status and see that as non-unique. Why is this important? Because this means that it doesn't wear off, and to the extent it's more wear off, it's a symmetric thing as worse on your side. Then on utility. Look, I think utility matters in and of itself as something that we ought to value. Because what is social issue? Right. It is like, let's speak so you said that you can rationally weigh things up as OG soft propped it. Chances are you don't necessarily see this love as intrinsically irreplaceable or non-fungible. It is the non-fungibility of this love that makes you value it so much. Why is that important? Because A, it affects the way you read positive experiences. On your side, you see it as part of the deal. As Roel said, we see it as part of the parcel of the deal of magic. On our side, we see it as extra surprises that's independent of the reason why you love this person. And this deals also with CG stuff, about you liking someone and then realizing the common sense. No, it's not about loving that person. It's about realizing your bond with that person is intrinsically important and valuable to you. I'll take those in a sec. Second of all, it's also about how you view the negative and uglier sides of that relationship. How does it affect your utility and welfare? Because on the outside, you say you tolerate it, you see it as slip-ups, inconveniences, but you're willing to bear with it in a short run, and possibly along the four reasons I gave about why it doesn't wear off. And more importantly, on your side, you see it as a betrayal of your trust, but also you see it as a breach of the necessary instrumental relationship on your behalf. So you amplify that harm a lot more in your own imagination, because you see that as a necessarily bad thing that affects your own interest as opposed to relationship. But finally, I'll take you in just a step. It's about how willing you are to carry out things, to develop your love, to maintain your love. On our side, you see love as intrinsically valuable. So you go on a date, you take your husband perhaps to have solo time with each other. On your side, the naturality of the slipping away of relationship means you don't really care if you slip in and out of that relationship. In many cases, these are the activities that give you most pleasure. First, love falls off. Okay, cool. Finally, on social effects, let's just be clear. We think that what Roel said is that you gain more ability for individuals to find idealized relationship because the society sees people being able to love the person they love as intrinsically valuable. Hence, you get more lobbying efforts to help women, not necessarily married for the sake of only status and wealth, but also respecting the fact that you can enter a job market, not be fissurized into marrying just for the sake of giving your family some wealth. This instrumental and social effect of the sexual plan is important because not only was it never addressed by CG's split response, it's also an important contribution that must be weighed up against the generic stuff about more stability or growth. All of these reasons, I'm so proud to oppose that. Thank you.
I'd like to know what you about speech and these news to be great if you can have